Hey everyone, got a question for you. How many times in the Old Testament do you think that the character Adam, right, the first man, shows up? I mean, it's pretty important, right? After all, as Christians, we're taught that Adam's sin is the root of all the problems of humanity, so you'd think people are talking about that all the time. He's the reason why we all die. He's why we struggle with sin. Now, for those who believe in the concept of original sin, thankfully our tradition doesn't, I don't, but they would say that his sin means that every single human being is born guilty. But despite this supposedly central place of Adam, well, the answer to that original question is only two. Adam is a character who shows up in Genesis 2 through 4, and then he's not mentioned again until 1 Chronicles verse 1, where he starts the genealogy of humanity. And interestingly, Chronicles is one of the last Hebrew books to be written, and in the Hebrew ordering of the Bible, Chronicles is the last book. So Adam only shows up at the very beginning and the very end. Some people think that he shows up in Hosea 6, but that's actually just talking about a city with that name. Okay, so why is this absence noteworthy? Well, it clearly shows that Adam is not central to the theology of the Old Testament, like we might assume. It never uses his sin as the explanation for the human condition. You go to Genesis 6:5, just a few chapters later after him, it describes the evil inclination of the human heart, but it doesn't give the source. Now, obviously, we have Paul's statements in Romans 5, and that gives a central role to Adam in the salvation story, and I'm not disagreeing with Paul. We should recognize that the argument Paul is making, that's something he came to when he looked at the story, when he looked at what God had done through Christ and the death and the resurrection. We should even know that our concept of the fall, which is not a phrase that appears in Scripture, it's actually more influenced by later readers of Paul, like Augustine, than what is actually in Genesis. While it's good to not overemphasize certain things in Scripture, we have to remind ourselves that Scripture also doesn't always tell us as much about the nature or the source of evil as we might like. We always want to know why, where it comes from. But really, the Bible is more focused on what now? Yes, we live in a sin that's plagued with death and all these problems in our world, but what we think of the source of sin maybe is less important than how we resist it through the power of Christ and in God's name.